Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and like the video. It really helps, it means a lot. Thank you. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. For this video I thought I could try another tutorial since my last tutorial is now a year old, and now I have a microphone so it'll hopefully be easier to follow. Also, I'm not a landscape artist, at least in traditional media. So for this tutorial I'm going to draw a cat, since I feel more comfortable with animal subjects, and I'll be able to hopefully go into more depth on how to draw them. Which leads us to the disclaimer. All tutorials, though they have easy steps and follow decent art fundamentals, are based mostly on the artist's interpretation of the subject matter. One artist's way of drawing may not be as good of a method for someone else, and vice versa. They may start out similar and or have common elements, but each artist has their own unique way of how they want to draw and what they're able to draw. With that said, I'll be walking through my way of drawing. I am not claiming that this is the best way of drawing animals, this is just my process. One more thing before the video starts. For the month of May, I'll be doing a trial period for my channel. Instead of posting shorts on Wednesday, I'll be posting them on Saturday, and the longer videos will be on Wednesday. If we like the change, we'll keep it. If we don't, everything will go back to normal on June. Now that all the disclaimers and updates have been explained, let's get into the tutorial, and I'll see you next time. For this tutorial, we'll be using my black sketchbook paper. This is 9 by 11 inches. Normal printer paper is 8.5 by 11, I think. So it's very similar to that size. I wanted for this tutorial to be as close as I can get to printer paper size, but I'll be working on black paper. For the tools that we'll be using, I have a white Prismacolor pencil. This one is what I will use for most of the drawing, to shade, to draw, sketch, everything. You also want a pencil sharpener. We want to keep these pencils very sharp. If you can see for my tip, it is as pointy as I can get it. This helps get all the dents in the paper so it will look smoother and overall have a better looking quality to it. I have two types of erasers. One's a more fine edge eraser that goes on my pencil. This is like a normal pencil eraser where I can erase very small sections if I need to. The next one is a big white eraser. This is for me to get larger areas a lot quicker. It also isn't as harsh of a fade as it would be for this one. This one can be very helpful with just lightening up the sketch, which is what we will be doing. For the biggest highlights, the brightest highlights, I tend to use soft pastel. This is a white soft pastel from Prismacolor Premier set. If you can kind of use whatever pastel works for you. Mine is very soft. It goes over pencil and goes on paper very easily. It blends very well. And we have different types of brushes. This is for me to blend the pastel and giving it a very smooth look. I have a couple different sizes. This black one here is mainly just to get extra powder off. It's not used for blending. But I have two different sizes for blending, a smaller one and a larger one. You don't have to use brushes. You can use Q-tips, Kleenexes, blending stumps, whatever works well for you to blend pastel. For the last thing, or last objects that I have acrylic paint pens for the eyes. I really like doing colorful eyes. I decided to make the cat's eyes this bluish, gray, green color. I typically use 2 colors, one that's darker, one that's lighter, just to give more depth to everything. So yeah, these are the tools that I will be using for this tutorial. Alright, let's get started, I suppose. Sorry for any background noise that may occur in this, and for any stuttering and dead silence that's gonna be in this video. I'm not the biggest talker, so hopefully I can do okay with this. Yeah, let's get to it, I suppose. So I have this picture of a cat. This is the one that we'll be drawing today. It's very fluffy. This is a screenshot that I took, so don't mind the time. This is not the right time. So here's how I would go about this. On the picture, I look for the head of the animal. So here's our cat. In this area, there's the head. We want to find a basic shape that we can use to easily replicate on our paper. So what I tend to use is a circle to represent the head, and the top of the circle would be usually the top of the head and then the bottom where the chin is. So I would do a similar shape like this and draw it on paper. So let's do that. When you sketch, it is best to have a sharp pencil. As said before, my pencil is really sharp, and we use the side of the pencil. To do this, I hold the pencil to the back and very lightly hold it. So I'm like not really gripping it. It is just gently resting on the paper. And I use my arm and shoulder to get these very light flowing shapes. I will not be using my wrist until we get to detail, because then we'll need that control. Since this is a sketch, we will not need as much control. We can keep it very loose, and we are able to fix it as many times as we want. Now that I have the basic shape of the head, let's mark out where the face is looking. This is what I tend to do. I look on how the face is positioned. So the eyes are like this, and the nose follows this line. So I will put the eyes on a similar line here, and do the nose line here. Now we can see the direction the cat is facing already. For the ears, I would start off with 2 lines in the general direction that it is. So there's one ear, here's another. We will come back and flesh them out a bit more, but let's work on the body. Now the body is very big and fluffy, as you can see here. I will only go to about here. I'll probably cut this picture to about there. You can continue down if you want. So for this shape, I will draw here, down and around. So that would be another rounded shape that I would draw right below the head. Now sketches always look kind of funny to begin with, but once we refine them, everything will make more sense. Now that we have that, we can start placing our facial features, as in where we can put the eyes and where we could put the muzzle. I would start with the muzzle for this particular one. So for this cat, the muzzle is, we'll start right here and come down to the bottom of our head circle. And the eyes will be placed right next to them. Now we could shape the muzzle a bit more. The muzzle is broken up into 4 different parts, in my opinion. You have this part, which is the nose. We have the 2, I guess, cheek pouches. I have no idea what these are called. And then we have the chin, jaw type placement, or whatever it would be. I'm not entirely sure what these are called. So yeah, I would break it down into 4 circles. So we have the nose, we have the 2 cheeks, and we have the chin. Now we can fix the ears a bit more. So the ears are an interesting shape. This one being more triangular, this one being more round. So with this one, I would start about here, where the center of the head line is, and travel up to our line. And then make sure the triangle is rounded, because the cat's ears are really round. Cats are really rounded and fluffy. So we want to kind of put that down on our paper. Same with the other ear, and we want to show how round it is. And all of this can change. It is not permanent in the sketching phase. Now that I have the general idea placed down on the paper, I can now go in and refine them. I like to start with the eyes and work my way from there. So let's look at our eyes. This one is more rounded than this one, so we want to put that onto our paper, show that this one is farther away. I also like to mark out the highlights or the brightest patches of fur, because on black paper we are not doing it traditionally. On white paper we tend to look for shadows. On white paper we want to look for highlights. So on this cat picture I am looking for these white sections and I am marking them out. So for this eye, we have a black part here, black shadow, and we have white area around it. Same for the bottom. A black shadow here, and white area around it. Now for the other eye, it is more stretched So you want to show that. Eyes are about the same height regardless of whether they are facing away from us or not, but the length can change. That's why this one looks more like an almond and this one looks like a circle. They're actually pretty much the same height. It's just that their lengths are different. So let's do the eye shapes. Usually for the eyes, I tend to erase some of the white pencil. That way I can see the shadows and the highlights a lot more clearly. Alright. Let's work on the nose. We're going to look at our picture, and I'd start over here. You can see the bridge of the nose comes all the way down, following this part of the highlight, so we can kind of replicate that onto our paper. Now we can start drawing in the nose very roughly. And adding more separation to the cheeks. Now that we have the face kind of filled in, figured out, we can shape the head to make it look less of a circle and more like the organic shape of a cat. So if we look at our reference, we have the forehead that comes down around the eye and then swoops out more around the cheek area. We want to replicate that on our picture. So we have the forehead that comes down to the eye and swoops down into the cheek area. Again, while sketching, things are going to look very weird, but it will all work out in the end. We just need to believe in it. Alright, I think the ears are not in the right placement, so I'm going to fix that. This is what I mean when sketches are not permanent, because we can erase things and move things around whenever necessary. And this is why we want a very light hand, that way we can erase things. Because if we're going directly in the sketch with very heavy pressure, we're not able to erase things as easily as we would with light pressure, because it's denting the page. Alright, now that we have the face more in detail, we can shape out the body a bit more before we start adding all of our fluff and fur. The chest fluff is more sharp than everything that's on the face, so I want to replicate that with straighter lines. I tend to use pretty straight lines for this, and then come in with more of a swoop when I start adding the fluff. However, you can use rounder shapes if you would prefer. Alrighty. At this point, this is where I would like to use my big eraser and lighten up the sketch a bit. Because we'll be going over it with a heavier hand, so we're going to add more pressure, and we don't really want to see any of these lines. Like all of our guidelines can be erased now. All extra lines that aren't helpful can be erased now. Make sure that the sketch is still there, that we're still able to see it. Alright. Again, I will start with the eyes. I always like to start with the eyes first. I always like them to be the brightest and have the most contrast, which is the lightest lights and the darkest darks. So I will start adding the irises. So if we would look at our picture, the irises are like the colored part of our eyes. So this shows me how the shape of the eye and where to place the highlights later. So that's what I'm working on now. I'm gonna work on the irises first and then add the highlights. Note that I now brought my hand closer to the tip of the pencil instead of holding it back, and I am now using my wrist when I'm drawing. This gives me a lot, I guess, brighter lines with a white pencil. It would give you more darker lines with a normal HB pencil, but this also gives us a steadier hand to make more precise lines and precise drawing. When drawing, we want to start off light and get into more heavier strokes. That way we can erase things, change things, and always make things darker and brighter when we need to. Now that we have the insides of the eyes done, let's start working on the fluff around them. This is where we do the most shaping of the eyes. and figure out all of our hair directions and patterns. So this is where we really need to look at our reference. It is important that we look at our reference about the same amount of time as we look at our page. So we need to look at the direction of the fur. So for this eye, you can tell that it's swooping in this direction, and we should follow that. We need to replicate that on our page. The same thing over here, except the opposite. We'll be moving this way, and that's what we need to put down on our picture. In my opinion, eyes are the most valuable part of the picture, so I like to take my time on them to make sure that they are as nice as I can get them. We can go back and erase things if we need to. Doesn't have to be perfect on our first go. Now that we have the eyes as done as I'm gonna have them right now, we'll come back for them. This is just the first run through. Let's move on to the forehead and the ears. I like to go up first, so up over here before I head down. That way I know everything above looks good, and then I could always adjust things as we go down. So I'm going to start with the forehead. Same thing, we're going to look at the patterns of the fur, and then we're going to go to the ears and follow the same fur pattern there. The ears have longer strokes, so we're going to replicate that too by adding longer strokes to our drawing. Again, make sure to keep your pencil sharp. This will help a lot with doing fur textures, because dull pencils make it look fuzzy, and we want fur textures to be more clear. Everything will look a lot better with a sharper pencil. I am shading the ear right now, that way it has a base color for when I add the longer wisps of fur in the ear. This is just something that I am doing for this picture. You don't have to. You could always just draw the wisps of fur and ignore this part. This is highly optional. I think now is a good time to note that fur is in clumps. We don't see individual strands of fur, we see clumps of fur. So if you can see, like at the eyes and the ears, we have these patches of white fur that we use and put on here. And you have like more of these triangular pieces here. That's what we want to put down on our page. We want to have everything in clumps. We don't want to put individual strands, otherwise it'll look messy, look wirely, and it's not a very nice look. So we're gonna work in clumps. To have everything look really nice. Again, we're working in clumps here. And they all follow a similar direction. We want to use that to our advantage. We want to do the same direction for everything. Like I said, we need to look at our reference as often as we look at our page. We want to follow it as close as we can. So this is where I'm going to leave it right now. So now that I am looking at this, I think first off, I think the ear needs to be brought up a bit more. It seems to be drooping. So let's fix that. And it's a little smaller. And this is why we work light. You want to be able to go back and fix things if something doesn't look right. It's important. Alright, now that I see the ears and everything on the top of the head, I can say that the face is a little squashed. So I kind of want to bring the head down a bit more here, which would then push the body more down here. Let's work on the muzzle now. We need to find his nose. His nose would be around here. Cats' noses are very small. If we were to make it a big nose, it'll look more like a dog. Now I also like to move around throughout the face. I don't always stay on one part at a time. If I need to fix something or I just want to find something more interesting. So if you want to continue working on one spot while I move to another spot, you can do that. Don't follow everything that I do. They go everywhere. Alright, time to do the body. So what I like to do is just find the big patch of white, and that's what I'm gonna put down on my page. Anything that is black, I'm gonna leave off because I'm gonna let the paper be that black. So we're not going to have to draw that in, we just have to indicate that the body is there with just the white. What I then want to do is break up this chunk even more by observing our reference, and I see these patches of fur right here that I can use to help break up that clump into smaller clumps. That way it doesn't look as intimidating. Now we can just take our time coloring it all in. Again, we have to use a light hand because we're going to go back and use our pastel and add more dimension to all of this. This is only our first pass in the shading. So it doesn't have to be very pretty. Follow the fur pattern. This is the part where you can experiment a little bit. You don't have to add every clump of fur that you see on the picture. You can just do parts of it. You can add more clumps. You can clump clumps together. It's really up to you. You don't have to follow this part directly if you really don't want to. Let's go back and erase any unneeded lines. Alright, time to do our second pass of shading. We really need to make sure our pencils are sharp for this one because we're going to be pressing a bit harder to get those very light lights. Again, I'll start with the eyes. You can start wherever you feel like it. You can start with the ears, the chest. I tend to start with the face. I think it's a good place to be, to try to get everything right, because that's our focal point. That's what we want to our audience to look at. We want them to look at the eyes and see how cute our cat is. This is where we can add more texture to our fur, using more single lines instead of scribbles. A refined edge. The side of the nose I don't really want to add detail to because I'm just going to cover it with pastel, and the pastel is going to make it all bright and smooth. So I'm just going to do another pass to indicate that it is lighter than everything else, just not to go deep into it with detail. throughout this entire thing, be sure to look at the reference. We want to look at that reference as much as possible. That is what makes us have very nice drawings, very realistic drawings. So we want to use it to our advantage as much as possible. For the ears, I'm not entirely interested on doing all the details, so I'm gonna make them as simple as possible. You don't have to do that. If the ears are your favorite part, go for as much detail as you want. I do not control what you do. You are in charge of what you want to draw. Like, have fun with it. That's the point of drawing. You want to have fun. You want to enjoy it. And if drawing fluffy ears makes you enjoy art, then just do it. I like the eyes, I like the face. If you like the ears, then I won't judge. Have fun with it. Again, around the muzzle, I do not want a lot of detail because it's going to be covered in pastel anyway, so the detail is going to be pretty lost in it. If you want to go with just the pencil or you don't have pastel, you could add as much detail as you want or as you need. It's just something that I would do, is just covered it with pastel. So like, whatever is up to you, it's all up to you. Last finishing touches before we add some pastel. Alright, here's where I make everything a lot brighter very quickly. For the brightest sections of the cat, this is where I want to apply pastel. So this entire chest area would be where I'd apply pastel. These areas of the muzzle and around the eyes. And we want to do it very minimally because pastel actually spreads very well. So around the eyes. Muzzle. And the chest. Alright. Time for brushes. For detail areas, we want to use a small brush. That way pastel doesn't get everywhere. Pastel will smooth out a lot of your detail. That's why we want to keep it very minimal, and that's why we don't want a lot of detail under the pastel. You could always add more pastel. It's just harder to take pastel away. So if you want to add more, go ahead. You can just add and add until you get the desired amount. Make sure you follow the direction of the fur. You always want to keep that in mind. For the chest area, I'm going to use this bigger soft brush. And as you can see with the pastel, it makes everything a lot brighter, and you get a very soft look with it. Now we can go back with our big eraser, darken areas. You want to press very lightly on the eraser, that way you pick up the powder from the pastel and not the pencil. And now that that's all cleaned up, we can grab our pencil again and clean up the areas around the pastel where we want a little more detail, a little bit of a smoother transition. You could have just left it there. You could have just left it at the stage where you just cleaned everything off, and it would have looked alright. I just like adding more detail to the fur, to the patterns. I always like to add a bit once the pastel is done, because I like that texture. I like adding it towards the edges, and the smoothness of the pastel isn't always my favorite look. So I always go back and add more texture around it. This is where I'm going off script a little bit, adding things that aren't actually on the picture. Again, this is an optional step. Now, we need a steady hand for this part. We're almost done. We need to add our eye coloring and our whiskers. Our little fluffy kitty here has whiskers on the top of the head, on the eyes, and around the muzzle. And I want to add those in. You don't have to add those in. I always like adding those parts in. Like, this is good on its own. But I just like going that extra step where we add the whiskers, and it just adds some interest. At least in my opinion. You don't have to do it, and I'm not gonna completely follow what's on the page. So what we want to do is again use our arm and shoulder, but we're gonna hold our pencil towards the tip. That way we're using the tip instead of the side of the pencil this time, so we can get those very nice crisp lines. Alright, time to add some color to the eyes. Again, as mentioned earlier, I have a light blue and a darker grayish blue that I'm going to use. So, these are Flysea acrylic painter markers, and they're just very opaque. Let's start with the dark one. I don't want to color every part of the iris with this color. I want to add only touches of color. Now that we're done with the blue, I always go in with my white to add the very brightest highlights. And this is what makes my pictures look so good, in my opinion. Is adding all the very bright highlights on the noses and the eyes. Now it's time for the last step, which is signing. And there you go. You have a cute little fluffy cat now. Thank you so much for listening to me yap this entire time, well, kind of yapping this entire time. I'm not much of a yapper as it is. So thank you for listening and being as far into the video as you are. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and See you in the next video.